Hey, welcome to SMarketPlace. And I've got Tom Dempsey and Rich Bornstein today. We're going to talk about storytelling and using media in the corporate world and how the transition has come over in the new wave of technology. This is SMarketPlace Live, where we talk sales, marketing, and rock and roll. I'm losing my voice today, like I went to a concert, but I didn't. But I am going to the Rolling Stones soon. Tom, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom Dempsey, market share growth experts.
How are you today?
I'm doing great. I've got my voice.
Well, good. You can carry the flag today.
All right.
And we're here with Rich Bornstein. Rich, welcome.
Hey, nice to be here, guys. You guys, I think, are in a better space than I am because you have all that bourbon back there, and it's only 10 a.m. here in LA, so it'll be a little early for me to, be starting on that.
We're in the rock and roll room.
Anyway, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. So, why don't you give us a little background? You've done some pretty cool things out in LA, and we connected on LinkedIn, and we're talking tech and media, and then you told me an amazing story, which we'll get to in a little while, involving one of my favorite bands. So,
Right.
welcome, Rich.
Well, I have had a varied background. I started my career as a journalist, and then I went into publicity and marketing, but for the last 25 years, I've run my own business, and I've really decided to focus on content creation. To me, everything I've done has been about positioning. It's been about whether I'm a journalist. When you're a journalist, it's like what you have to grab people at the beginning, or they're not going to read your story. When you're promoting a TV show or a movie, it's really about what is it? What is it? Is it a great Shakespearean movie, or is it a great movie based on Shakespeare? So there's subtle differences in that, and it's the same thing in business. I mean, and so I realized that's my passion. That's what I want to go after. I have an ability to grab the nugget because I've interviewed basically superstars from all walks of life, regular people. It's just been in my background. So I said, okay, this is what I'm good at. This is my passion. This is what I'm going to do. So I'm concentrating on that, and it just kind of springboarded from there.
So, tell us about the kind of videos that you make and how you've evolved over the last 20 years with video production.
Well, my one of my favorite things to say is I treat everyone like they're the head of Disney. So, if I'm going to spend, I don't take every client that comes in certain times. You just say, hey. So I treat everybody like they're the head of Disney. Yeah. To me, they're the most important person that's in the room. That's that's in my sphere. And so I basically, people say, oh, I have video. They think, oh, you just put a camera up and you do it. I'm looking for those nuggets, and I'm looking for what makes things special. It's not enough just to have put a camera up and do it. The other thing is there's timing. It's who is going to sit through something more than 2, 3, 4 minutes. They're just not, unless they're your family. And so I try to focus the main video to be as close to 2 minutes as possible. Obviously, there are certain times I've just created some that are 5 minutes and 10 minutes, but those are for specific purposes. But I think less is more. And the other thing that I focus on that you guys, we've discussed it here, is that most people tell the what, they don't tell the why. And the why is the most important thing that we can do. It's because people do business, people tune in to people that they like, people that they feel some sort of kinship with. And just to tell people what you do is not enough. There's a reason that you do what you do, and it's important to get that story out there.
So,
Yeah.
go ahead, Tom.
When you think about the longevity of your career, tell us about your journey. I'm sure it wasn't a simple bottom to top. You've had some really significant achievements and challenges along the way that you faced in your career. Think about some of the highlights of your journey.
Well, that's funny. Yeah, I mean, you tend to forget, all the challenges that you have. You tend to, when somebody asks you about it, and they, oh yeah, I remember that. I mean, I think every time you do the next step, I think you're nervous. I think you think people are that you're a fraud somehow, and so there's that whole inner journey where you go, oh God, am I going to fail? And so that's always been kind of a motivating thing for me. I'm a perfectionist. I've got a lot of the Virgo traits, so I don't really lie. I don't want to fail ever, even though it's not my fault. So it's some of the things that I've done, that people might enjoy. I mean, you might be seeing me on Netflix and the American Gladiators um, uh, documentary that they have. I had the privilege of doing that. I always get a kick out of some of the careers that I've helped launch. People like Kenneth Branagh, Julia Roberts, like people like that. I enjoy the fact that I helped launch the Sundance Channel. Worked with Robert Redford, and that was fun. Just didn't feel like moving to New York, so that ended after a year. And I've been successful launching some companies, so I feel really good about that. On a personal note, it seems like a long time ago, I did get to cover gymnastics in the '84 Olympics. So, I was in the front lines, when Mary Lou Retton became America's sweetheart. And, so those are things, that come to mind. There's a lot more that's out there, but, and then later I got nominated for a couple of local Emmys, got a chance to work on a local show here in LA. That's really taken off. And so it was nice, when you're doing stories like on the oldest Toy Story in LA and those kinds of things. It's nice, that you get recognized for some of those things.
So, how do you see the transition from where you were doing more traditional media to now what's going on with corporate media? And how do you draw those stories out of the executives?
Well, I mean, okay. First things first. You have to become a student of your subject. I mean, my proudest moments is when I'm in an interview, is when somebody turns to me and says, "Hey, you've done your research." I remember I was talking to somebody, and it's an actress, it was a long time ago, and she was going through her story, and I said, that must have been around 1986, right? And she like beamed, and she said, boy, okay, you've done your research. I got a great interview. If you can find those nuggets, so they know that you're not just reading from. I work with this guy where I'm just the producer. I don't get to do the interviews with him, and he says, well, the paper says. I just think there's something wrong about that. The paper doesn't say anything. You're saying it. So, and I try to establish some sort of rapport with whoever my subject is. And that doesn't mean that, you show them the top of your forehead. You basically, they're the most interesting person in the world when you're speaking to them. And I think that's really the most important thing. And then you have to have an idea of what those nuggets are. You have to have an idea of what you're now. You're not always successful, but I mean, look, I interviewed Jerry Bruckheimer a long time ago. He stopped himself. Okay, he would just tell you what he wanted to answer, and that was it. There was nothing afterwards. Like most of us add little things. None of that with him, because I guess he had been burned. So I was never going to be able to let there and probe Jerry Bruckheimer to get him to say something that he didn't want to. He was so practiced. But most people, they allow you to get in a little bit, the more comfortable they feel. I like to start out with something that's off topic. The cameras aren't rolling. We're just trying to, if I find out if they're sports fans or they're music fans or if I know maybe a little tidbit of trivia, then, I try to get into that, develop some rapport. And then I get into the nitty gritty. And that, I mean, I feel like that's been a good formula for me. But I think the most important thing is I'm naturally curious. I really do want to know what people's stories are, and so it's not fake to me, because I find some of these stories really, really interesting. So if you go into it like that, I think you're going to be successful.
Yeah, I mean, these days, well, any day really, the story is got to be so compelling. Like you said, you've got a minute or two to capture someone's attention. And in today's world, SEO and the combination of AI are so critical. Discuss the importance of SEO and AI in the landscape of today. How do you use both SEO and AI, assuming that you do?
Well, I would love to tell you that I'm an SEO expert. SEO is very important. So everything really has to be connected. It's one of my biggest challenges is to make certain that my website is connected to the LinkedIn, which is connected to any of the social media. I'm a little bit different than a lot of people. Social media, while I create for social media and I believe in the importance of it, I find, when you're running your own business, if I get involved in social media, I don't get anything done during the day because it leads to the here to here to here. So I have to really be, disciplined so I don't get lost in that. But it's darn important, and you're 1,000% right in terms of, AI is part of our lives, so we're not going to ignore it. Now, the way I use AI is perhaps different than what other people do. AI is not going to replace me and going to do my thinking for me and do my work for me. But what I do is I develop whatever it is that I'm thinking about, writing about, creating about, and then I may use AI to kind of expand my brain because it comes up with stuff that maybe I didn't think of. Oh, you know what? Yes, that's good. So therefore, I use AI as a tool. I think the people that think AI is going to replace humanity, never say never, but I think we're a long ways off from that. I mean, I was at the Academy Motion Pictures and they were talking about AI. They did a whole day on it, and they're really afraid, that AI is going to replace, actors. It's just a matter of time until an AI created person is going to, carry a movie or a TV series. I think in our world, in the marketing world, in the branding world, in publicity world, I think we're a long ways off from that. There's just a difference. I think human beings still, it's still important, and which is another part of my philosophy, which is our goal is to create a human connection, an emotional connection with our audience, and if we can do that, then I think we're on our way to success. If we think, look, what do you remember? You don't sit there and remember somebody selling you something. You remember a story. That's what you remember. Look, I always tell people this. I've never owned a pair of Bomba socks, but I know that they took the Tom shoe model and you buy one and then they're giving back to the community. That's their storytelling. Is that they're doing more than just selling you a pair of socks. So I think to take that philosophy to the next level, find out what those stories are, figure out in your own life what is compelling, and then I think that you'll succeed.
Yeah. Well, you were talking about passions too, and the things that are important to somebody, so you can get through to them on a different level. One of your passions is, well, we just found out, cigars. Another one of your passions is rock and roll. So tell us about maybe some of your favorite rock and roll bands.
Well, I'm going to date myself. My kids give me a bad time. Dad, do you listen to anybody that's recorded in the last, 40 years? But, I look, music, when I was a kid, you'd go to the beach, especially out here in Southern California, and everybody had transistor radios. So you would go from towel to towel and you would hear music playing. You would hear songs that you would hear songs that you listen to, and everybody would listen to the same kind of music. And so I go back to those times, whether it was the late 60s or the 70s, and certainly in the 80s, and I have a very eclectic taste. So sure, as a kid I loved the rock and roll and all that kind of stuff. And then I got into jazz a little bit. I was lucky enough as a really young person. I met Les McCann, who's one of my favorite jazz artists. He used to come to the house and talk to my stepfather. My stepfather used to go to the Orient, and so he would bring Les cameras, as Les's photography career burgeoning. And then of course in the late 70s In the early 80s, I got into, punk and power pop because I really love the energy. Forget about the mosh pits and all that nonsense, but I like the energy. I like the fact that they played fast. I like the fact that they were honest. So that's kind of my background. And I've been lucky enough to meet some people along the way. I know you guys are you're going to ask me about. Okay, so I was one of my favorite bands is the Who. In fact, I might even say that they are my favorite band. And so so I always wanted to meet them. So Townsend, I heard it can be an interesting fellow. I've never got a chance to meet him, but my friend was running a rock and roll fantasy camp, and he said Daltrey's going to be here. You need to come. So, all right, this is great. So but what do you say? It's like, it's weird. What do you say to your, somebody that you consider one of your heroes, one of your inspirations? Back in the day, I would have considered Springsteen as one of my inspirations. I have no idea what I would have said to him except, "Oh my God, I saw you at the Roxy in 1975." But with Daltrey, it was different. He's a little bit standoffish and all that. So we were talking, and I didn't want to come across as that guy where I was, hero worshiping. So we're just chatting, and he's, being, like I said, standoffish. So finally, I said it was after John Entwistle died, and so Keith Moon was already gone. John Entwistle was gone. I said, "So I understand you're going to be on a tour. Are you touring as the Who? Or are you touring something else?" And he looked at me, and it's like, because he likes to swear. If you listen to his interviews, and I thought he was just going to cuss me out. And he said, "What do you think we're going to tour, Mike? You think we're going to tour as the Bloody Beatles?" And I went and I said, "Roger," I said, "I saw you with a band, at the Greek Theater back in 1980, whatever." And I said, "So I didn't know whether you were going to tour as, Townsend Daltrey or what." He beamed. Okay. From that moment on, we were now going to have a great conversation because he realized that I wasn't just that guy that was, just sitting there going, "Oh, Roger, I love you." And then we actually got down to, to talk about some stuff. So it was, again, I liken that to my business. I knew that I was there. I was asking him a legitimate question about, the orchestra and, all that kind of stuff. "Oh, Pete stole my idea. That was my bloody band. I put this together," and all that. So then, we had some common ground, and then he realized, look, obviously it might be the only time I'll ever speak to him, but that 15, 20, 30 minutes, were memorable for me. And I have a picture, and so it's something that I'll always cherish. But it just, he really thought that I was going to sit there and talk to him about the Beatles, like, "Yeah, okay, Roger, yeah, sure, pal." Now, on the other hand, there was a lesser known guy by the name of Spencer Davis who was there that time too, and most people don't know Spencer Davis, but they know Stevie Winwood. He would have talked to me all night. I mean, it was like he just loved bantering with me, and he was a great guy, but he wasn't Roger Daltrey. So, while I cherish the moment, it's kind of not the same thing, but it was fun. It's always nice when you have those moments.
What I take away and just a lesson from that conversation with Roger Daltrey and carry it forward to how you work with people that you interview and people that you're working with. It's finding that moment or that concept or idea that can level the playing field.
Oh, no, absolutely. That's why I say you got to develop some sort of, you have to do your best to develop some rapport with whoever you're talking with. And this is just in life as well. And look, it's hard. Some people don't want to be, they don't want to be approached. They don't want to be spoken to. They don't, they want you to leave them alone. And so, okay. But if you can kind of get in that little nugget or something or other and to, break down the Iron Curtain, then I think you have a shot of being successful. And, and it's look, sometimes you just walk away feeling, "Oh God, was I an idiot?" Because you just haven't succeeded. But more often than not, most people are humans. Most people, realize, that the human connection is important, and they respond to certain things. I'll give you an example. I had the privilege of interviewing Kevin Costner a few years back, and so I had heard he could be a little difficult, so you better be careful. So I walked in the room and I said, Mr. Costner, it's nice to meet you. I said, by the way, I produced that piece for the 25th anniversary of Field of Dreams that played on the scoreboards around the country. And he got this weird look in his eye, and I thought, oh my God, he hated it. Like I'm in trouble here. And he said, you did something that I thought was impossible. And I thought, oh man, I thought he was going to say you screwed up my movie. And he said, you made me and my producer cry. And he said, after 25 years, I didn't think that was possible. He actually got up from the chair and gave me a hug. And then I got the greatest interview ever. Okay. So it was just that little moment that, that we were able to bond. And even though I only got to spend 5-6 minutes with him, it was just memorable. And I was able to get stuff that perhaps other people walking in that room didn't get. So that, little things like that always make me feel good. Like maybe I've done something correct in my life.
Well, that's some pretty incredible experience. And as we wind this down, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you'd share with somebody who doesn't have media experience. They haven't had the media training, and you've got to put them at ease. But in today's world, we've got to connect our podcast to our CRM, and it's the sales executives or the CEO's role to get out there and be on, a medium like this. What do you do to put them at ease, and what do you tell them to help get them thinking in a new way?
Well, it's actually interesting that you bring that up because, me being on the other side of the camera is always a little weird for me. I'm used to being behind the camera, asking the questions, making certain the shot looks right and all that. But when I was interviewed for the Gladiator special on Netflix, I forgot some of the things that I tell people all the time, which is you're in control of the interview. It doesn't matter what people ask you. You are in control. You say what you want to say. You have your messages there. And, you get caught up in the moment and you kind of forget some of those things. But I always tell people, look, be yourself, relax. This is not a performance. This is you talking. I use another example, but I don't dare. I might offend somebody. There was a play many years ago, and I always tell them we're just two people talking, and that's really what it is. If you can get conversational, if you can just sit there and block out all the stuff. And again, I don't believe in looking into the camera. I believe you're eavesdropping on a conversation. So, because we're all going to get nervous if we look into a camera. We're just talking. We're just chatting. And I always tell people that. Know your points. Get your bullet points there. Don't script yourself, but just be yourself. Look, everybody has an inherent charisma. You are in business for a reason. You are involved in your project for a reason. Those are the things that you want to. Those are the things that you want to talk about. I got into this because I was involved with. He was the worst coach in the history of mankind. I said, if I can't do better, then I shouldn't be in business. Okay, that's motivation. That's inspiring. So you wanted to do better than what you were experiencing. It's those kinds of things that I try to tell people. And look, I'm not ET. You know what I mean? I'm not looking for you to flub. This is about you. This is your message. This is your story. Just be yourself. And I think those things happen. Well, I'm not good in front of the camera. Of course you are. Of course you are. You just, as long as you don't sit there and think about, oh, I'm on the camera. I mean, one of the reasons I can't record myself is because when it's just me, I need somebody to ask me some questions. Otherwise, I'm hearing my voice go, oh man, why'd you say it like that? Oh God, you have a 5 head as opposed to a 4 head. I mean, all the stuff that I should not be thinking about. Okay. But when someone's talking to me, then I can relax and just be me. So some people are fantastic. They can just sit there and hit record and they're great. And God bless them. I'm not one of those people. I need to have some human interaction for me to be successful in the videos that I create. One thing you haven't asked me about is video versus print. I mean, a lot of people sit there and go, oh, I got this great business plan and I wrote this great article. Hey, that's wonderful stuff. But the reality of it is, and they've done studies on this, 90%, 95% retention comes from pictures and video. So we can write till for the rest of our lives. But this is what makes people remember you, remembering your story. That's what it is. It's video. The power of video, it cannot be overstated in today's world. And I think you're seeing it. I mean, I think Tom asked the question earlier about the changing world and all this kind of stuff. Our world's changed. We're not going back to the other thing. There's a reason people don't read the newspaper. There's a reason that most of the stories, if you happen to watch the news, they're all 2 minutes or less. That's what our attention spans are. Keep that in mind. Don't think that you know something that someone else doesn't know. The reality of it is that's it. You better come across on video, or I think you're holding yourself back.
Well, that was really a connecting point. You found me on LinkedIn. We had a couple people in common, and we had two sides of the story. Shameless plug here, but I was excited when we met that you got really animated about our idea to connect your podcasting to your CRM. And I think you're really hitting the nail on the head of why it's so important to go on video and to be thinking about social media as a way to connect with people, and as your technology back end as a way to manage that at scale. And I think we're just hitting the point now where we can do that.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that excited me about talking with you guys, and I'm sorry that Sarah's not here as well, is that connecting, what you just mentioned, that's the crucial part. And I'm not too proud to admit I struggle with it. I'm not an expert in it yet. So I was really excited to hear from you guys, because if you're connecting your blogs to what you're posting on LinkedIn, to your projects, to whatever else you're doing, then you're a success. Then all of a sudden everything flows together. So, and that goes back to Tom's question about the SEO. Yeah, I mean, you got to be found. I mean, I had someone ask me years ago. He says, "Well, why should someone talk to you as opposed to somebody else?" And I stumbled for an answer. Well, I'm me. Well, what makes you different? All those things go into your question, to answer your question. And that's why I was excited about you guys. Your backgrounds are very complementary, and your idea about connecting all this stuff, it's not just the future, it's the present. And that's why, I love talking with you guys. That's why I'm hoping that, this is, the beginning of a beautiful relationship between us, because if we're successful in doing this and getting the word out and helping people tell their stories and identifying it, then I think, the sky's the limit. And that's really what excites me. And you guys are, let's face it, you guys are great. You're very comfortable. I mean, there's no, nobody's got a visor on, I don't have to throw you a bag of pinto beans and say, here, count them. So that's it's funny that I bring that up. I was so angry at one of the jobs that I had, and I was so angry at the CFO. And I swear to God, I thought that I was going to go to the store and throw him a bag of pinto beans and go, here, leave me alone. So anyway, I didn't mean it with you guys. But those things, everything that we're talking about, that's the future. That's the present of business. And we better step it up. Otherwise, we're going to be left behind. I mean, I know, listen, I know all of us are 32, but the 29-year-olds are, they're trying to surpass us. So we better get our, up our game. We're not shooting set shots like, back anymore. We better start working above the rim. And I think you guys are part of that, working above the rim process.
Well, like it or not, there's always an evolution, and you want to stay ahead of the curve and figure out what the next step in that evolution is, and be a part of it. Mm-hmm. Before we wrap up, two quick questions.
Yes, sir.
What was your first concert?
I'm embarrassed to tell you that. I saw Seals and Crofts at the Hollywood Bowl with my brother. So I'm almost embarrassed to tell you that now.
Hey, no reason to be embarrassed.
No.
If I hear Hummingbird on the radio one more time, I think I'm going to scream.
All right.
Summer Breeze.
Summer Breeze.
Yeah. I mean, England Dan and John Ford Coley, that they're in the same boat, But having said that, what I enjoy most about music is that it brings me back to a time. I can remember having a crush on someone in the fifth grade. When I hear a Donovan song, I'm going like, oh man, it's like I'm there. I mean, when I hear Turn Down Day from The Circle, um, one of your Midwest bands from Michigan, it reminds me of being on the beach as a kid. So I
Yeah,
love that. I love
yeah,
that. It
right.
transports you. When I don't really listen to Springsteen as much anymore, just because I like his old music and not his new music as much. But when I hear those things, I remember being frustrated in high school and listening to Rosalita or things
Yeah,
like that. So that's what I love about music. It transports you to another time in your life, and that's really what I love. So yeah, that was my first concert. And while I'm embarrassed to say, I did enjoy going to the Hollywood Bowl for my first concert. I
yeah,
was pretty
that's
young.
got to be memorable for sure. The second question is, what's your favorite bourbon? I think I
Well, now
may know
that
the answer.
Yeah, that's well, I don't know. That's I have a lot of well, I actually went bourbon tasting, so I've been to Buffalo Trace and places like that. I want to say Four Roses is one of my favorites. I like one of the
All
ones
right.
you have behind you. I like that Knob Creek is pretty good. I
Yeah.
mean, Pappy's I want to try just because
Right.
what in God's name could be worth $1,000 for a shot? But so it's like anything else. The biggest thing about bourbon that I learned from doing the tastings, you do that little sip, and they give you the Kentucky hug, and then it all smooths out. And
Yes.
that is, really, really what I love. Um, because I'm not really a booze hound, but I do enjoy a good bourbon and going outside and smoking a cigar and, you know, just those are, just two of my passions. It's funny about the cigar thing. Many years ago, I was working on Star Trek 6, and I got to be friendly with the director. And we went and had lunch at the commissary at Paramount, and he pulled out cigars. You want one? I said, yeah. And so, we smoked a cigar and we kind of bonded. And then years later, we re-met in London. And, I said, oh, you still enjoying a good cigar, Nick? And he kind of grabbed me by the collar and he said, I can't believe it. He says, my one vice has now become hip. He goes, women are smoking cigars. He goes, no, I like to smoke cigar, whatever. And then we had a good laugh about it. So I've been smoking, my dad smokes cigars. So I've been smoking, while people were smoking cigarettes, I used to smoke the cherry cigars in high school. And then, you realize that's not, that's whatever. So then I used to write a column for the newspaper in college. And because I smoke cigars, you see a cigar sticking out of my mouth in the cartoon that they made of me. So it's been something that I've been, enjoying for a lot of my life.
All right. Well, when you come to Denver, you and Keith and I will go to the Brown Palace, smoke a cigar, and get some good bourbon.
You know what? I will take you up on that. Now, I won't bring up the other part of that equation that we discussed before we were on the air, but if you can do
Okay.
that, then that would be the trifecta, and I'll be on the next plane.
There you go. Night before last, I'm losing my voice, and I think it's because I had my first cigar in like 5 years. But we were up on the roof of the Denver Athletic Club with all the buildings around us, the night sky. We had the moon, the stars were out. We had a bottle of bourbon, and we sat and smoked a cigar. And I was like, wow, I'd
Oh,
forgotten. Because for me, smoking a cigar was going out on the boat and then coming back and then being on the dock and having a cigar. And I
what,
sold my
what,
boat.
what,
I sold
what
my
was
boat
it? What,
5 years
what were you
ago.
smoking, Keith? What were you smoking?
Nope, I don't.
Let me for the cigar aficionados out there. Let me give you a little tip because I learned this the hard way. So I always smoke Dominicans just because it's something that I can afford and whatever. Plus, it's a bit of an affectation. Oh, I only smoke Cubans. Yeah, right, pal. Yeah, sure. Um, but so when I would travel to Europe or Canada, when I would where you could buy Cuban cigars, I would always buy the little ones because that was what I could afford. But I don't smoke a little cigar. I smoke a Churchill size. And so one day I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he said, "Do you want a cigar?" He had a Churchill Romeo and Juliet from Cuba that he got, and I said, "Man, they give me a headache." He goes, "What are you talking about?" And I told him my experience. He said, that's because when you smoke something that's this little, it's you're getting too much smoke. Okay, if you don't do that all the time, all you're doing is of course you're getting a headache. Smoke your regular size and you're going to be fine. And you know what? He was 100% right. So I don't smoke the little cigars anymore. My friends offer them to me all the time. Oh, I got these from Cuba. I don't care. I will smoke my regular size. I don't get headaches. And it's always enjoyable experience. So, or like you, lose my voice. So if it was a little one, Keith, lesson learned.
It was a
the regular
medium.
size.
It was a medium length, but it was a big fat cigar.
Oh yeah, okay. So a very big ring gauge. So Tom, you don't indulge. You're not doing
Yeah, no, I enjoy a good cigar every once in a
Yeah.
while for sure.
What did I have a picture of Winston Churchill laying bricks, and he's smoking that's where they got the Churchill name from, was because they made those cigars special for him. But not that I am a Churchill aficionado, but I do like that picture hanging up on my wall.
Well, this was awesome. We got some sales, some marketing, and some rock and roll perspectives, and some bourbon and cigars thrown in for good measure.
Well, you guys are fantastic. I'm looking forward to us communicating a lot. Look, if anybody has any questions, they can follow up with you or follow up with me. I'm always happy to help.
Tell people how to get in touch with you.
Yeah, I mean, check me out on LinkedIn. It's Rich Bornstein. My site is bornsteinmedia.com, which a producer told me a long time ago. He said, you can name it after your kid or your dog or whatever, but you want people to be able to find you. I don't know whether he's 100% correct, but I just started out, and so I'm bornsteinmedia.com. You can check out my work. My email is richb@bornsteinmedia.com. Or reach out to you guys. Obviously they're in your sphere, or try to hook up with me on LinkedIn. That is the one part of the media the social media that I'm on. That's how we met, and I believe in it. Now, I am a little disconcerted these days. I'm getting more and more of these people going, "Oh, I saw your profile. Would you like to be my friend?" And then it's like, "Oh, come on, that's not what LinkedIn's about." But from a business perspective, I believe in the power of LinkedIn. I think it's the best tool we have right now. There's also a new one out there, and I'm called Alignable, that I'm kind of investigating a little bit. But I do like LinkedIn a lot.
That's terrific. Well, we're glad that you reached out. We look forward to doing something together. We got another guy coming in another couple of weeks that I think would be a good mix to this. He's dedicated his life to doing interviews, and I was thinking, man, with you as a producer and him as an interviewer, and us putting it together on a podcast ecosystem, we'd be a home run.
Absolutely. But I got to tell you something, man. When I'm producing stuff and other people are doing the interviews, it's like, I go, oh, what? It's like I'm like this, like, why'd you ask him like that? Whether I'm right or wrong. But yeah, no, I love that, because there's a guy that hires me and he fancies himself as an interviewer, and I'm just like shaking my head out. In fact, my camera guys are usually going, "Rich, you should have been doing the interview." I go, "Hey, he's paying the bills. He's paying the bills. So, he's the greatest as far as I'm concerned right now."
Love you, babe. Never change.
Yeah, exactly. Love you. Mean it.
Hey, Rich, thank you so much. We've learned a great deal from you, not just today, in our previous conversations and leading up to this. And I'm sure the viewers have learned a great deal from you, and we really appreciate your time.
All right. Well, thank you. Well, guys, anybody that's listening or will listen, let's look at this as a beginning and not an end, and not an ending.
Absolutely.
This is the beginning. That's what these things are for. It's to start conversations. It's to open your brain up to the next chapter. And for those people who say, "Oh, I already have my book written," that's nonsense. Every time you think you've got the ending chapter, something else happens. And that's what business is. Every time you think you've got your one little area, something happens, and there's a great challenge that's there, and that could be fantastic for you. And if you're open to it, then you can succeed. If you talk yourself out of it, then obviously you won't succeed. So I hope that this is a beginning for anybody that's listening to it. And whether it's Keith or Tom or me, reach out. and let's begin a conversation.
You got it.
Great way to wrap. Thank you.
Much appreciated, and we'll definitely be talking to you soon, Rich.
All right, guys, with all due respect, I'm going to go back and put my sweatshirt on. I'm tired of, I don't like these grown-up clothes. I want to be comfortable for the rest of the day. So that's it.
Good.
All right. Well, we're so glad you joined us, and thank
right.
you. We've had several people coming and going on the interview, and 2 of them have stayed for a while. So
All right, great.
Look forward to next
Okay.
week. Tom,
Okay.
thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Appreciate it.